So Suzanne Collins has added another book to the Hunger Games series, adding her fifth with The Sunrise on the Reaping, a book telling the story of Haymitch, the character from the original series. But the real question is this a prequel book that was needed? Is it worth buying? And should you give it a read? And so let me go pick up the book myself and try to find that answer out for myself. Yes, it only took me 3 days to read this book. I have a life, I swear. But in reality, I do want to add some context before I dive into a review, a spoiler-free review of this book. I want to give a little bit of context on this series. So this series started out with the main original series on the Hunger Games following Katniss and Peeta. We're in this post-apocalyptic type society in which it seems like nukes have gone off and that the only remaining humans that we know of in this series and its canon world is in the United States, with only a few of the areas still being inhabited. And we see that those form 12 districts that basically form as almost slave states to an overruling capital. And because of a failed civil war by the districts, leading into this book, The Sunrise on the Reaping, it has been 50 years since that failed civil war. And in every one of those years, the districts have had to give up two tributes or children to compete in these Hunger Games where they basically kill each other off until there's one remaining victor. And so that's the basic premise of this world. And so let's then flip to what I actually thought after reading the book. After reading the book, I came away really pleasantly surprised. This was a very good book. I think Suzanne Collins, each and every book that she's made in this series, her writing has gotten better. This isn't my favorite of the series, but I do think it's a good addition. I would probably have it third out of 5 out of all of the books. But I want to dive into kind of what we get in this book without getting into the spoilers. So, within the first 100 pages, I think is where a lot of people might struggle with this book because it feels so similar to the first Hunger Games book. The characters feel very similar in terms of Katniss and Haymitch, and the story seems to follow a similar beat. Even the style in which the story kicks off, the main events happen, feels very similar. And so when I was, around the 100-page mark, I was liking the book, but I think my expectations for right now were correct. It didn't really feel like it was needed when we already had kind of a similar story to this. But after that point, Suzanne Collins, I think, was almost doing this on purpose, trying to lull you into this feeling of, oh, okay, we've already heard this story before. After that point, the story takes on its own new themes. It takes on its own new things that it's trying to tell. And this book is really, in a lot of ways, kind of building off of some of the elements of the other books, but making it a main focus of this book. We're focusing heavily on propaganda, PTSD, and I know those are facets of the other books, of course, but this is like the main focus of it. This book is really about trying to put all the pieces together that when we get to the second and the third books of the original series, with this book, you understand fully where the rebellion happens. It's all kind of formulated in this book. And in a lot of ways, it's like a mini failed rebellion, is almost how I look at this book. This is a book that takes your expectations of what you think it's going to be and completely shifts that, using propaganda and how, again, we learned Haymitch's story through the Capitol, right? The Capitol can shift the narrative completely, and controlling that's how they control the districts. A lot about this book is focused on that actual idea. And this book is very depressing. There is not much that's happy in this book, and as you read, it's just a depressing read. And of course, in a series where children are killing each other to try and, live, it's never going to be the happiest read. Of all of the books so far, this is the one to me that is definitely the darkest in terms of actually reading it. Especially when you get to the final part of this book, like the last 100 pages or so, it's punch after gut punch after gut punch. And so that is kind of my review for Sunrise on the Reaping. It's a really good book. Really depressing book. I'd probably give it like a 4.5 out of 5. I would rank it my third book of the 5 Hunger Games books. I think it's a great addition, and I think Suzanne Collins continues to improve each and every book, and highly would recommend you buying it and reading it.